What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Sorry my face and my hands are lit up because the light is right above you guys. But before we get into today's video, I do want to say that I was supposed to drop a different video which is more up to date, which I did this past weekend, except I didn't finish the job and I didn't want to leave the video the way it was. And I got to go back to the storage unit to finish consolidating and putting things up for sale for the videos you guys should hopefully see after this one. I did mention in the previous video that I was trying to get a bunch of stuff off the floor and put into storage. The transmission that was on the floor, I took it to the storage unit already along with all the bins on the floor, but I did mention that I had a pair of CRV trailing arms that I need to finish and get rid of as well too. So I did do the trailing arms tonight. I didn't show it. Somebody did ask me to show the process of modifying the CRV all-wheel drive trailing arm, except I don't recommend it. That's why I didn't show it. The trailing arms in my all-wheel drive CRX is from a wagon that I modified somewhat the same way, except the CRV just requires a lot more work because the trailing arm is much bigger opposed to the front half of the Civic Integra trailing arm. And what I mean by a lot of work going into this is that I had to plate the back here. You see that plate? To give a mounting point for the front half because of how narrow it is. You can see there's like a ½ inch gap there and also on the bottom, but there's just a lot of work going into this, and it's just a lot of potential break points, which if your welds are good, like if you did a great job, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if you're just barely doing it for the first time and you don't know how to weld, or more or less don't have a jig or tools, I wouldn't recommend you guys doing it. So I modified this trailing arm, the camber arm right here. The front half is a Civic Integra. This bottom section here is a CRV, obviously the 5-lug, and I did finish this one here, so I do have the pair. I can take these to storage finally, or I can put them on a later car or something, I don't know. But for the most part, it's done, it's off the floor, and it's going to go to the unit for storage. Somebody also commented and said that my video, when I sway around too much, it's blurry, kind of gives you like a little motion sickness, and that was on the previous video. And I also said the same thing because I watched the video before uploading it and I noticed that it was a little blurry. Maybe some of you guys are used to it, maybe some of you guys saw it as well. Some of you guys probably didn't even notice it, but I found out that the GoPro, it shoots at 60 frames, and when I render it out of Sony Vegas Pro, my editing program, I rendered it out in 30, so I robbed half the frames, which is why it looks like motion sickness, and I apologize for that. I talked to Honda Vlogs and did a little bit of research. I figured out what it was and we fixed it. I did a little test run and it looks good. So hopefully from this day forward, I do render the video in 60 frames to ensure we don't have that issue again. Now today's video, I've been getting a lot of comments recently, which is weird. Recently on a video I did in 2019, K24 swapped Civic wagon. This was my homie Chewy's car, and we got comments that were saying, how did you close the hood with a stock K24 in a Civic wagon? Now I want to tell you guys right now, the Civic wagon front nose is a little bit more slanted higher in the rear than it is for the sedans, the hatch, and the CRX. So that means we have a little bit more room. We also use the EFK2 motor mounts, which is dual height, and we dropped the engine lower. And then we also had the stock Honda Accord intake manifold, which I shaved the whole entire top of it to clear the hood after cutting the webbings out of it. So we're going to throw it back to 2019 with Chewy's K24 Spot wagon. It was a junkyard K24A4 Honda Accord engine that we got for a good deal because it was a sale that day. I do want to let you guys know once more that junkyards are a great place to start your first swap, whether it's B series or even putting another replacement engine in, or if you guys want to go K swap, it doesn't hurt to go K24A4, K20A3. It may not be the best engines, but it will be cheap enough for you guys to get started on a K swap. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up. We're also going to be getting back to regular programming. I know I said it in the last video, but I got some things coming in, so hopefully when those come in and the storage unit is done, we're going to get back to wrenching. So if you guys want to stick around for any of those, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
There's no denying what we want. Playing games
we're K-swapping this EF wagon right here. Obviously, doing a K-swap, you're going to get an engine of your choice. This one, we got it from the junkyard. It's a K24A4. It's not the greatest engine of the K-Series lineup, but it was super cheap. I think we paid about $140 for it, the way you see it right here from the junkyard. So that's definitely a super come up, and it is a great start to K-swap in your chassis, because now you have the K in your car and you can always save up for a bigger engine or a Frank or a different model. So I'm not going to get into full details about the completeness of the engine. That's totally up to you. Make sure you got your alternator, starter, so on and so forth. So we have a Type S transmission from an 02 RSX Type S. This is originally my transmission, but I have a Z3 LSD in there now. So I sold this to him. He has the clutch inside the car. He has a flywheel here. We have all the bolts, the throw-up bearing, the pilot bushing to get all the transmission part installed onto the engine. And again, today's goal is to complete this engine before we throw it in the car. Now, to get this engine into the car, we're going to need aftermarket motor mounts. Now, my preference of choice would be Hasport. We have the EFK2. These are the version 2 K-swap mounts for EF. This gives you the ability to adjust the height of the engine. 2 heights. If you're running a K24, you can run the bottom bolt and that'll drop the engine lower so you can clear the hood. And if you want ground clearance, obviously you wouldn't use the top bolt. He also has the Hasport post mount. Since the Accord one is different, you're gonna need the CRV, the RSX Type S, I believe the Z3 are the same, or an aftermarket one like this one right here. So doing the K-swap in our non-K chassis, we have to get K-swap header. In this case, we have some no-name brand big tube header for the K24. And because our chassis is so tight in the engine bay, we have to modify our subframe. I don't think I modified it enough, but then I can't go back any further because we're already reaching our 14mm thread hole. Shifter boxes, you can use a stock shifter box with or without the base plate. That's a stock RSX shift box. But because we want to keep this kind of sleek under the console, we have the Hybrid Racing no-cut shifter box. This is an older unit, but it worked in my car before I upgraded it, so Chewy has mine. In relations to this, your shift cables have to match your shifter box and your cables have to match your transmission. Now, that is my transmission. That is also my shifter cables. And this used to be my box, so everything here should work out perfectly fine. The engine harness, you can use 0204 RSX Type S base model, and then you can buy a K-Series conversion harness, which would then connects to the stock harness that connects to your chassis, allowing you to run the stock harness. And you don't really have to get too pricey into this, but because Chewy wants to be a badass, he has himself a Rye-wire unit right here. Full mil-spec Raychem harness, and this is pretty pricey, but it's definitely going to clean up the engine bay a lot. Now, because we don't have a stock ECU for the K24, we do have this ECU right here from an RSX base model. Chewy had this sent out to Honda and got the K-Pro installed. This is pretty pricey, but if you guys really want the bang for your buck, K-Pro, K-Tuner, AM, I would recommend something like this if your car is something that's going to be seeing the track or, you know, drag, or gonna be making some power. You need something tunable. Now, if you're running AC or power steering in your car, you don't need this piece, but because we're not running either or, we do have a K-Tune AC power steering delete kit right here. This comes with all the belts and everything you need to eliminate AC and power steering in your engine. And this right here relocates your alternator from sitting on the top to sitting on the bottom. All these little items are going to be based off your chassis, and because we're putting a hydraulic transmission into a car that originally came cable, in this case automatic, we do have a JB tuned clutch line right here. We do have a hydro conversion that we're going to be installing in the car. There are companies out there that sell swap axles like Insane, Hasport, Drive Shaft, but in our case, we're trying to keep this cost friendly, so we do have some Junkyard RSX base model axles. Now, the base model are the same length as the Type S, but the base model comes with 32mm ends, and this is going to fit into the stock hub of this car perfectly fine with the matching half shafts. So we have that ready to go. All right, guys, so we got the engine planted in the engine bay here. It's looking really good. The EFK2 dual height mount kit definitely helps a lot with the K24 and the ugly intake manifold. You can see right there, that's just to cover on the intake manifold and then the intake arm itself. It's what's sticking up. It's looking very promising as of right now. As you can see right here, the K24 is planted in place and it's not going to be coming out anymore now that I've gotten all my measurements done. And in today's video, I'm going to cover part for part what's going on in the car to make this more and more complete, in hopes of the next several of days we can fire this car over. Alright guys, so I got the shifter cables all buttoned up. It is bolted in the car, and we got the washers, we got the cotter pin in place so it doesn't pop out. These guys are nice and secured, and the shifter box is enclosed. I closed the hood earlier, and the cool thing about these Hasbro mount is that it allows you to drop like an inch or so. It's a dual height mount kit, and right now it's on the lowest setting. This one right here, you just flip the motor mount, and then the one in the back you bolt up to the highest bolt to allow the engine to sit lower. So pull that right there, pull the harness. I think very minimal mod. I am going to shave this right here, and I am going to shave this right here, and then definitely going to cut the webbing on the hood. But as you can see, this whole side nearly closes perfectly, and then over here is like, it's about an inch. So definitely going to cut the webbing and trim the manifold a little bit so we can get more clearance, and I'm almost certain that this is going to close with the 24 under the hood perfectly fine. Alright guys, so I was tinkering with the hood a little bit. You can see I only cut the section that is literally over the engine and the manifold, the valve cover. And with a little tweaking right here, you can see these are all 10 mil, but I used some of my Downstar hardware to make it more flush. This one right here dinked up, I believe, right there. No, right somewhere. It put a dink on the hood. The hood is already it's already in bad condition. You can see these giant dents all over the place, but I put a little dink in that corner right there. You can see it. But a little tweaking on the hood, the hinge, the headlight, and all, we finally got the hood to close flush. Right? Normally, K24 Hasbro EFK2 mounts. No ginormous gaps, and I can still pop the hood. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Had my Sirocco radiator sitting in the backyard, kind of mocked that into place just for the time being because Chewy does not have a radiator. I did have all my soldering stuff ready to go because I thought that's what I was going to do, and then I took a second look at it to realize that it's a full plug and play harness now. So Carlos, if you're watching, man, definitely kudos to this because it just makes everybody's life a lot easier. you guys saw in the last clip, we got the feed coming out right there, 45, 90 into the filter right there, and then it comes out to the fuel rail here, straight in, straight out. I made it bow down just in case Chewy wants to make his intake go that way. It'll clear the fuel line here instead of on top, or he can just go straight down. But we got the fuel pressure regulator hooked up, we got the gauge hooked up here, the barb on the bottom, and this end blocked off. That goes to the return line. I had to put the whole cover back on to bolt the coil pack, and everything else inside the engine bay is pretty much done, except, like I mentioned, radiator's not into place because I'm gonna fire it dry in case I need to kind of go underneath here for some reason. I don't want the radiator to be in the way, so I'm gonna scroll down to other vehicles. Stock K24 core with header. Okay, it is connected to the ECU, and I am going to upload it right there. Drop. So the idle air control valve is stuck. I'm gonna swap the idle air control valve, see if it works. If it doesn't, I'm just gonna block off that port, and hopefully he can drive home like this, because you're still gonna try to take it today, right? He's gonna try to take it today. For sure? A little clicking noise is the fan. No mames.